I was once happily married for 7 years to Alison. We had built what seemed like a perfect life in the Chicago suburbs. Our friends envied our relationship, or at least that is what I thought. Recently, Alison had grown increasingly distant, spending late nights away from home. Nothing prepared me for discovering her affair with my coworker James or the devastation I felt when she left me for him without a backward glance. But the real shock came months later at the company party when she completely lost it seeing me happy with Sophia. Before I tell you how my ex-wife completely lost it when she saw me happy again, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had someone try to sabotage your happiness after they are the ones who walked away. My name is Darian, and at 32 years old, I thought I had my life figured out. I had worked hard to become a senior software engineer at TechVision, one of the most prominent tech companies in Chicago. My career was thriving with consistent promotions and recognition for my innovative solutions to complex coding problems. I had always been passionate about technology, spending countless hours perfecting my craft since college. This dedication had earned me respect among my peers and a comfortable lifestyle. I met Alison during our junior year at Northwestern University. She was majoring in business marketing while I studied computer science. We bumped into each other at the campus coffee shop when we both reached for the last blueberry muffin. Instead of arguing, we decided to split it, which turned into a 4-hour conversation about everything from childhood dreams to favorite sci-fi novels. Her vibrant laugh and sharp wit captivated me immediately. What struck me most was how genuinely interested she seemed in my rambling about coding projects, something most people glazed over. We dated for 3 wonderful years before I proposed. I remember nervously fumbling with the ring box during a sunset picnic by Lake Michigan. When she said yes, I genuinely believed I had found my forever person. Our wedding was small but perfect, surrounded by close friends and family who celebrated our love. Everyone commented on how we seemed made for each other, how our strengths and weaknesses balanced perfectly. For 7 years, our marriage seemed picture perfect. We bought a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet suburb with a spacious backyard where we talked about raising children someday. Weekends were filled with hiking trips, cooking experimental recipes together, and hosting game nights with friends. We had shared hobbies like photography and collecting vinyl records, building memories with each adventure. We had detailed plans for the future, including starting a family within the next 2 years and eventually moving to the Pacific Northwest for its natural beauty and tech opportunities. The first signs of trouble appeared, so gradually I almost missed them. Alison began staying later at her marketing agency, claiming big projects and demanding clients. Her phone became a permanent attachment, and she would take calls in another room, speaking in hushed tones. When I would reach for her at night, she would often be too tired or claim a headache. These moments of rejection accumulated slowly, each one a tiny fracture in what I thought was an unbreakable bond. I tried everything to reignite our connection. I planned surprise date nights at her favorite restaurants, sent flowers to her office, and even suggested a weekend getaway to the Michigan wineries she had always wanted to visit. Each attempt was met with lukewarm appreciation at best and excuses at worst. When I gently suggested couples counseling, Alison dismissed the idea, insisting we were just going through a busy phase and everything would normalize soon. Her excuses always centered around work stress. Her marketing agency had taken on several high-profile clients, and she spoke constantly about the pressure to deliver exceptional campaigns. I believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative was too painful to consider. I supported her ambitions, picked up more household responsibilities, and tried to be the understanding husband I thought she needed. All the while, the distance between us expanded into a chasm I could not bridge. My suspicions grew despite my desperate attempts to silence them. The classic signs were all there. Text messages at odd hours, new clothes and hairstyles, unexplained absences, and a growing emotional detachment. Yet I continued making excuses for her behavior, telling myself I was being paranoid or insecure. The truth was, I feared what discovery might mean for the life we had built together. Everything changed during a business trip to Seattle that was unexpectedly cut short when our client rescheduled. I returned home a day early, looking forward to surprising Alison. The house was empty when I arrived, but something felt off. There was a half-empty wine glass on the coffee table, 2 plates in the sink. As I walked upstairs to change, I noticed one of her earrings on the floor outside our bedroom, then a man's tie I did not recognize, draped over the banister. When I confronted Alison that evening, she initially denied everything. She claimed the tie belonged to her brother who had visited earlier that week, that the dishes were from a lunch with a female colleague. But the performance crumbled when I mentioned finding a hotel receipt in her purse with both her name and another person's. Her face changed from defensive to defeated in an instant. The shocking revelation hit like a physical blow. The affair partner was James Thompson, my direct supervisor and mentor at TechVision. A man I had admired and respected for years who had guided my career and been a dinner guest in our home numerous times. The betrayal was doubled, cutting through both my personal and professional life with surgical precision. Alison's confession came with an unexpected twist of blame. Through tears, she claimed I had been emotionally unavailable, too absorbed in my work and hobbies to notice her needs. She said James understood her in ways I never had, that their connection had developed naturally through their shared interest in marketing strategies. Each justification felt like another knife between my ribs, especially knowing how hard I had tried to maintain our connection despite her growing distance. 2 weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday morning, Alison announced she was leaving. She had packed most of her things while I was at work the previous day. James had left his wife, and they were moving into an apartment downtown together. She spoke with clinical detachment, as if discussing a business transaction rather than the demolition of our 7-year marriage. The last image I have of that morning is watching her car disappear down our tree-lined street, taking with it the future I had built all my plans around. The weeks following Alison's departure blurred into a haze of sleepless nights and mechanical days. I moved through life like a ghost, showing up at work, responding when spoken to but hollow inside. My apartment became a fortress of isolation where I could drop the pretense of being okay. Friends called and texted, but I rarely answered, unable to articulate the depth of my pain without breaking down completely. The workplace became a minefield of humiliation as whispers spread about the affair. Colleagues would fall silent when I entered the break room, their pitying glances, worse than any cruel comment. Some offered awkward words of support, while others avoided me, entirely unsure how to address the elephant in the room. The situation grew even more unbearable when James received a promotion to Senior Development Director, a position many believed I had been on track for. His new role meant I now reported directly to him, creating a power dynamic that twisted the knife deeper. Our weekly one-on-one meetings were exercises in professional restraint, discussing project timelines and code reviews, while ignoring the personal devastation he had helped create. James maintained a facade of business as usual, occasionally attempting to be overly friendly as if to compensate for destroying my marriage. Each interaction required every ounce of self-control I possessed. Meanwhile, Alison wasted no time rebranding her social media presence to showcase her new life with James. Photos of weekend trips, fancy restaurants, and couples, yoga sessions flooded my feed before I finally blocked her accounts. Mutual friends would inadvertently mention how happy she seemed, not realizing each casual comment was another wound that refused to heal. She had seamlessly transitioned to her next chapter while I remained stuck in the aftermath of her betrayal. The divorce proceedings proved another battleground. Despite being the one who had an affair and left Alison, demanded half of everything, including equity in the house I had purchased primarily with my inheritance from my grandparents. Her lawyer painted me as work-obsessed and emotionally negligent, using private moments from our marriage as ammunition. The legal bills mounted as quickly as my anxiety, adding financial stress to my emotional burden. Sleep became a luxury I rarely enjoyed. Most nights I would lie awake, replaying our relationship, searching for signs I had missed or ways I might have prevented the collapse of my marriage. When exhaustion finally claimed me, nightmares of finding them together would jolt me awake, heart racing, and sheets soaked with sweat. I began dreading bedtime, the quiet darkness providing too much space for painful thoughts. The social fallout extended beyond the workplace. Friends we had shared for years began taking sides, many believing Alison's crafted narrative that I had been cold and inattentive. Dinner invitations dwindled, group chats fell silent, and weekend activities no longer included me. The isolation compounded my feelings of failure and rejection, confirming the whispers of doubt that perhaps I had indeed been the problem all along. Financial realities forced me to sell our house and move into a one-bedroom apartment half the size and twice the distance from work. Each item I packed represented another piece of the life we had built together, now dismantled and divided. The smaller space felt both empty and suffocating simultaneously, a physical manifestation of how my life had contracted. Neighbors in my new building were strangers, their lives continuing normally, while mine had derailed completely. By the 3-month mark, I had reached rock bottom. I drafted a resignation letter, convinced I could no longer face the daily reminder of betrayal at work. The thought of starting over somewhere new anywhere that did not carry memories of Alison and James became increasingly appealing despite the professional setback it would represent. I sat in my car one morning for nearly an hour, resignation letter in hand, debating whether to submit it or try one more day. Brian from the back-end development team became my unexpected anchor during this time. He began inviting me to lunch, not to discuss the affair, but to talk about normal things, new coding frameworks, or the latest science fiction releases. He never pushed for details or offered unsolicited advice, just consistent presence when everyone else seemed to be keeping their distance. His simple acts of friendship provided small moments of normalcy in my otherwise chaotic emotional state. Despite the daily psychological torture, I made the difficult decision to stay at the company, partly because the job market was tight, partly because I refused to let them take my career too. Each morning required a fresh commitment to endure another day of sidelong glances and awkward interactions. I began arriving early and leaving late to minimize social contact, burying myself in code as both distraction and solace. The rumors Alison spread to mutual friends grew more elaborate as time passed. According to her, I had been controlling, emotionally unavailable, and possibly dealing with undiagnosed depression that made me impossible to live with. These character assassinations reached me through well-meaning friends who thought I should know what was being said. Each news story felt like a fresh betrayal, rewriting our history to justify her actions while villainizing me in the process. 6 months into this nightmare, I experienced a moment of clarity that would change everything. After a particularly difficult meeting where James had taken credit for one of my innovative solutions, I found myself sitting alone in the office stairwell contemplating my future. The realization hit me suddenly with absolute clarity that I was giving them power over my happiness by remaining trapped in my grief and anger. That moment in the sterile stairwell became the turning point I desperately needed. I made a commitment to myself that day to reclaim control over my life piece by piece. I started with therapy, finding a counselor specializing in betrayal trauma who helped me process my anger and rebuild my self-esteem. The weekly sessions became a lifeline, providing tools to manage intrusive thoughts and reframe my experience not as a failure but as an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Physical transformation became another focus, joining a gym and hiring a trainer who pushed me beyond my comfort zone. The physical exertion provided both an outlet for frustration and measurable progress when everything else felt stagnant. Within months, my body began changing muscle, replacing the weight I had lost during the darkest period. The physical discipline spilled into other areas, improving my sleep patterns and energy levels. I rediscovered old passions Alison had subtly discouraged, reconnecting with college friends she had deemed too immature or unsuitable for our married social circle. Weekend hiking trips, pickup basketball games, and amateur photography meetups filled my calendar, creating new memories to overlay the painful ones. These friends accepted me without judgment, having known me before Alison shaped me into the person she wanted me to be. My renewed focus extended to my career, channeling energy into ambitious projects that showcased my technical skills. I volunteered for challenging assignments. Others avoided built prototype applications during weekends and contributed to open-source projects that gained attention within the industry. My work became noticed by senior management beyond James's sphere of influence, creating new potential pathways for advancement. Fate intervened 8 months after Alison left at the annual Midwest Web Development Conference. I was presenting a session on scalable architecture when I noticed a woman asking particularly insightful questions from the third row. Sophia Rodriguez, with her intelligent eyes and thoughtful expressions, approached me afterward to discuss implementation details my presentation had not covered. Our conversation continued through lunch and into the afternoon workshops, flowing effortlessly between technical topics and personal interests. Despite our immediate connection, I hesitated to pursue anything beyond professional friendship. My trust had been shattered so completely that the idea of vulnerability terrified me. But Sophia was patient, suggesting casual coffee meetings to discuss industry developments or share insights on recent tech articles. Her approach was refreshingly different from Alison's intensity, never pushing for more than I was ready to give. Over several months, these professional meetups gradually evolved into genuine dates. Sophia's background in systems engineering complemented my software development expertise, giving us endless topics to discuss. But more importantly, she listened with authentic interest, remembered details from previous conversations, and respected boundaries in a way that slowly rebuilt my capacity for trust. Her own past included a broken engagement that had taught her the value of honesty and clear communication. Sophia helped me heal without knowing the full extent of my wounds. Her consistent reliability and transparent communication provided a stark contrast to the manipulation I had experienced. When she said she would call, she did. When she expressed feelings, they aligned with her actions. These simple consistencies gradually reprogrammed my expectations, showing me what healthy connection looked like. 3 months into our relationship, I finally shared the complete story of Alison's betrayal. We sat on Sophia's balcony overlooking the city lights, and I spoke until my voice grew hoarse, revealing every painful detail I had kept bottled inside. She listened without interruption, occasionally squeezing my hand in support. When I finished expecting to see pity or discomfort, I instead found understanding and admiration for how I had survived such profound betrayal. Her response strengthened our bond immeasurably. Rather than viewing me as damaged goods, she saw my experience as evidence of resilience. She acknowledged the risk I took in trusting again, and promised to honor that trust not through grand declarations, but through daily consistency. That night marked a fundamental shift in our relationship, moving from cautious dating to committed partnership based on mutual respect and transparency. Through workplace connections, I began hearing rumors about trouble between Alison and James. Their relationship, begun in secrecy and betrayal, was reportedly struggling under the weight of mistrust and power imbalances. James had apparently grown controlling, questioning Alison's late work nights with the same suspicion that had once been directed at me. The irony was not lost on me, though I took no pleasure in their struggles, having experienced firsthand the pain of relationship dissolution. The annual TechVision Company Gala loomed on the horizon, an elegant affair that gathered all departments for recognition and celebration. The invitation arrived in my email with a personal note from the CEO acknowledging my contributions to a recent successful project launch. Both dread and determination filled me as I realized both Alison and James would be present, as James still held his director position, and Alison now worked in TechVision's marketing department, a job James had helped her secure. My anxiety about the event manifested in stress, dreams, and moments of doubt. The thought of facing them together, watching them navigate the room as a couple in the space where I had once belonged, threatened to unravel my progress. Sophia sensed my apprehension, suggesting we could decline the invitation without explanation. Her willingness to prioritize my comfort above social obligations only strengthened my resolve to attend. This gala represented an opportunity to demonstrate how far I had come, not just to them but to myself. The evening of the gala arrived with a mixture of nervous energy and quiet confidence. For the first time in over a year, I looked in the mirror and recognized myself again, not just physically but in the determined eyes staring back at me. My tailored navy suit fit perfectly across shoulders, now broader from consistent workouts. The man preparing to face his past was stronger in every way than the one who had been left behind. Sophia was breathtaking in a deep emerald dress that complemented her olive skin and dark curls. More than her physical beauty, her calm confidence and genuine excitement for the evening provided the perfect counterbalance to my lingering nerves. As we prepared to leave, she straightened my tie and reminded me that regardless of what happened, we would face it together. Her words cemented what I already knew, that I had found someone who stood beside me rather than in front of or behind me. Arriving at the elegantly decorated hotel ballroom, we turned heads immediately. Colleagues who had witnessed my painful journey did double takes at the transformation. Several approached with warm greetings, engaging both Sophia and me in conversation that felt natural rather than forced or pitying. The genuine connections reinforced how much had changed, how many people had been silently supporting me even when I felt most alone. Our first encounter with James came during the cocktail hour. He approached with calculated casualness, drink in hand, and forced smile in place. The confident demeanor that had once intimidated me now seemed hollow, his eyes betraying stress and unhappiness despite his attempt at nonchalance. He made stilted small talk about recent projects, carefully avoiding any personal topics. Sophia gracefully filled conversational gaps, her professional demeanor revealing nothing about how much she knew of our history. What struck me most during this interaction was my own emotional response, or rather, the lack of it. The man who had once represented my deepest betrayal now seemed diminished, almost irrelevant to my current happiness. The realization was profoundly liberating confirmation that he no longer held power over my emotional state. When he excused himself to greet another executive, I felt nothing but mild relief at the end of an awkward social obligation. Alison arrived fashionably late, making her entrance just as dinner was about to be served. Her eyes found me immediately across the room, widening with visible shock at my appearance, and the beautiful woman by my side. She wore an expression I recognized from our marriage, the carefully controlled smile that masked inner turmoil. Even from a distance, I could see how she straightened her posture and touched her hair adjustments she always made when feeling insecure. The evening progressed with a surprising announcement during the awards presentation. The Innovation Prize, traditionally given to department directors like James, was instead awarded to me for the algorithmic solution that had saved our biggest client millions in processing costs. Standing on stage, accepting the crystal trophy, felt surreal, especially seeing James's tight expression from the audience. My acceptance speech was brief and professional, thanking my team members by name and expressing gratitude for the opportunity to contribute to meaningful projects. Throughout the ceremony and subsequent dinner, I noticed Alison's increasing agitation. She drank champagne, steadily laughing too loudly at comments and repeatedly glancing toward our table. James seemed equally uncomfortable, his attention divided between networking with executives and monitoring Alison's alcohol consumption. The tension between them was palpable even from across the room, a stark contrast to the easy comfort Sophia and I shared. The situation escalated during the dancing portion of the evening. After sharing several dances with Sophia, I was approaching the bar for water when Alison intercepted me, her movements slightly unsteady. Her words came in a rush, asking how I was commenting on my appearance, creating a forced casualness that barely masked her underlying emotions. I responded politely but briefly, maintaining professional courtesy while establishing clear boundaries. This measured response seemed to trigger something in her. Her voice rose as she asked if I was enjoying making her look bad, if parading around with my new girlfriend was my way of getting revenge. The nearby conversations hushed as colleagues pretended not to listen. I kept my voice even, stating simply that my personal life was no longer her concern, and attempted to step around her toward the bar. What happened next stunned everyone within earshot. Alison grabbed my arm, tears suddenly streaming down her perfectly made-up face, and declared that leaving me had been the biggest mistake of her life. She claimed James was controlling and suspicious, that their relationship had been exciting when forbidden but crumbled under reality. Each revelation came louder than the last, culminating in her admission that she had only valued what we had after throwing it away. James appeared at her side, face flushed with embarrassment and anger. His attempts to quiet her only fueled her emotional outburst. She turned on him, then accusing him of changing once he had won her, of using her to hurt me, and then becoming exactly what he had accused me of being. The public meltdown confirmed the whispers about their troubled relationship playing out now for all our colleagues to witness. Throughout this uncomfortable scene, Sophia appeared at my side not to rescue me, but to stand with me. Her quiet presence provided support without taking away my agency in handling the situation. When Alison directed questions at her, asking what she saw in me that was worth staying for, Sophia simply replied that true character reveals itself not in easy times, but in how someone rebuilds after devastation. Her words, delivered without malice, but with unmistakable meaning, silenced Alison momentarily. I chose not to engage in the spectacle Alison was creating. Instead, I gently suggested she might want to step outside for fresh air and compose herself. This calm response in the face of her chaos seemed to deflate her anger, replacing it with a sadness that looked genuine for the first time. James used this moment to guide her toward the exit, throwing a look of mingled resentment and embarrassment over his shoulder as they departed. We stayed at the event only briefly afterward, but the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Colleagues who had once avoided me now approached with newfound respect, having witnessed both Alison's behavior and my composed response. More importantly, I felt an internal shift, a final release of the anger and hurt that had been my constant companions for so long. Walking out under the starlit sky with Sophia's hand in mine, I realized I was truly free, not because Alison had been exposed, but because her opinions and actions no longer defined my worth. 1 year has passed since that night at the company gala, a year filled with growth and new beginnings. Sophia and I moved in together last spring, creating a home that reflects both our personalities, filled with books, plants, and technology projects in various stages of completion. Our relationship continues to deepen, built on a foundation of honesty and mutual support that makes each day better than the last. The contrast between this healthy partnership and my marriage to Alison has been both educational and healing. The professional landscape shifted dramatically in the months following the gala. James faced increasing scrutiny as several of his high-profile projects failed to meet expectations. Without my problem-solving abilities to rely on his leadership weaknesses, became apparent to upper management. He was eventually demoted to a lateral position with less responsibility, a development I observed with detachment rather than satisfaction. Success built on deception rarely stands the test of time. Alison made several attempts to contact me after her public meltdown. Text messages expressing regret, emails reminiscing about good times, even a handwritten letter delivered to my office. I responded only once with a brief message acknowledging her apology but firmly establishing that our chapter was closed. This boundary setting was not about punishment but self-protection, recognizing that engaging would only pull me back into a dynamic that no longer served my well-being. My own career flourished as I was promoted to lead a new department focused on artificial intelligence applications, a position that moved me to a different floor and reporting structure from James. The team I built combines technical excellence with emotional intelligence, creating a collaborative environment where innovation thrives. Many colleagues who witnessed my journey have become friends, as well as professional allies, relationships built on mutual respect rather than convenience or circumstance. The most unexpected development came last fall, when I learned that Alison and James had separated permanently. The news reached me through mutual acquaintances rather than office gossip, as both had moved on to different companies by then. My reaction surprised me, a moment of reflection, rather than vindication. Their relationship, begun in deception, had followed a predictable path to its conclusion. The cycle had completed itself without requiring my participation or emotional investment. Looking back on losing Alison, I now recognize it as the painful catalyst that led me to find myself. The person I am today, confident in my boundaries and clear about my values, emerged from that crucible of betrayal and rebuilding. The experience stripped away pretense and people-pleasing tendencies, leaving behind a more authentic version of myself capable of deeper connection and genuine happiness. Some lessons can only be learned through fire. Sophia and I recently celebrated our first anniversary with a weekend trip to Door County, watching sunsets over Lake Michigan and discussing potential futures together. Our conversations about tomorrow come without pressure or timeline, each of us secure enough to let possibilities unfold naturally. This relationship has taught me that love should expand your world rather than constrict. It should add joy without requiring sacrifice of your essential self. In a strange twist of fate, I encountered Alison one final time at a local restaurant 6 months ago. She was dining alone, looking more like her authentic self than the polished image she had maintained during our marriage. Our interaction was brief but significant. Her tearful apology, seeming genuinely remorseful rather than manipulative. I accepted her words, with the peaceful knowledge that forgiveness benefits the giver more than the receiver. Walking away, I felt no urge to look back. The most valuable lesson this journey has taught me is about self-worth that cannot be shaken by another person's actions. When Alison left, I believed I had lost everything of value. The truth was that I had temporarily forgotten my own intrinsic worth existed independently of her validation. Rebuilding after betrayal meant reclaiming that core knowledge, recognizing that while relationships may enhance our lives, they do not determine our value. I have learned to appreciate red flags in relationships rather than explain them away. The small inconsistencies, the subtle withdrawals, the misaligned words and actions, all provide valuable information when we are brave enough to see it. This awareness does not make me cynical, but more discerning, able to distinguish between authentic connection and its counterfeit imitations. Trust now comes not from blind faith, but informed choice. The happiness I have found with Sophia demonstrates the difference between relationships built on mutual admiration versus mutual need. We choose each other daily, not out of dependency or fear of loneliness, but because we genuinely enjoy the people we become in each other's presence. This distinction has transformed how I understand love, not as desperate clinging but as freedom to grow together. Looking at photographs from before the affair, I barely recognized the man I was smiling, but unknowingly standing on shifting ground. The journey from that person to who I am today involved tremendous pain, but equal growth. Like a broken bone that heals stronger at the fracture point, I have been remade by this experience into someone more resilient, more authentic, and ultimately more capable of giving and receiving genuine love. I share this story, not from a place of bitterness, but profound gratitude for the difficult path that led to true happiness. Have you ever experienced something that seemed devastating at the time but ultimately led you to a better place? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If my journey resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that betrayal is not the end of their story but potentially the beginning of a better one. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes what feels like your worst day might actually be the first step toward your best life.